Hannah was a total narcissist at Adam's opening night. She just made it all about herself and her wanting to go to college and basically ruined his first experience on Broadway. This is the first fan theory of 5 that we're gonna read today from some of the biggest fans of girls on Reddit. I'm gonna break them down, read them out to you, let you know my thoughts, and you let me know your thoughts in the comments. So our first fan theory continues and says she just had to make Adam's opening night about herself, didn't she? She just had to tell him minutes before he was set to go on stage for his first Broadway performance ever that she was going to move away to attend grad school. Now, my first thought is that Hannah's in her early 20s. She really didn't mean to do that. She didn't think it was making it about herself, even though it was. She really just thought it was going to be this thing that was going to make him so excited. That was how I took it, is that she was like, hey, look at us. We're a power couple. You're on Broadway, I'm going to be going to this college, and like both of us are going to be thriving, but obviously he didn't take it that way. Continuing with the fan theory, she couldn't have just let him have his moment and told him the following day, or does Adam deserve this for making her feel so isolated during his Broadway prep? How long was that? Weeks, months? Maybe she did this to spite him for that. So a few other folks chime in here. So annoying that she didn't wait till the next day, someone said. To me, it felt like she was trying to say, see, I'm special, talented, successful too. And yeah, that was my thought too, is like, it was a little bit of this self-conscious thing where she sees Adam pursuing her dreams and she's like, what am I doing? I think even Shoshana mentioned, she's like, wow, does it feel really weird that like everyone else is doing things and you're not? Maybe she had said that in a different setting too. Shoshana's always just dropping those little things and she's like, wow, you guys are literally in your early 20s and you've done nothing with your life, you know? And so there's definitely been a few moments, I think, where Hannah has felt that. Even talking with Patti LuPone, where she's like, oh, yep, this is a thing that happens with people who get on Broadway and then they just treat everyone like crap and basically your relationship gets ruined. Someone comments about this and says, yeah, she does a lot of things without thinking about how they'll affect the people around her. Very tactless, but weren't we all at some point? So this person's like, let's give her a little bit of grace. And someone else says, I think her choice to tell him and her motivations to do weren't a product of her literal age as a writer. I think she was defining the somewhat selfish choice of someone her age to tell him was the point of this plot. A really big part of girls in general is Lena's like, listen, I mean, she was in her early 20s, so the self-deprecation in this is so incredible, honestly. The self-awareness of someone to be able to laugh at themselves and being like, hey, I'm writing these characters who are so obviously selfish, but let's be clear, we're all like them, including me. Now, someone else is commenting and agreeing a little bit about what I'm saying. So they say, yeah, at the end of the day, I think she just didn't think about the impact on him. She had good news and she wanted to share it just from a very childish place. She often doesn't consider how her actions impact others. And again, like, I think there is some grace that we have to have. Like, I don't purposefully think she was going out to manipulate him. I'm thinking of the jobs that she had, or, you know, when she flashes her hoo-ha to the principal. Like, she was clearly trying to manipulate the situation, even with that boss that was sexually harassing her. And she was like, oh, well, I'm going to, you know, call the cops on you and get a bunch of money. But she starts out by being like, come on, let's do it. Like, she's obviously planting something and trying to manipulate the situation. Here, I think she genuinely just had good news. So I wouldn't necessarily call her a narcissist. I would say she's in her early 20s, and aren't we all a little bit silly in our early 20s and say things we probably shouldn't have said? I certainly have had those moments. Someone else comments, and I love this, like, but this is how you write a good scene. And it continues, this show never ceases to make my jaw hit the floor. The audacity of these characters, all of them at one point or another, are so incredibly selfish. But this is the thing, like, a lot of people will get upset, like, oh, she shouldn't have done that. And we forget, like, this is a TV show, and the point of the TV show is to have conflict. If there was never any conflict, nobody would watch this. But we're seeing this conflict between Adam and Hannah, and him trying to get prepared for the show, and her being like, why are you leaving me? And being all self-conscious. And then there's this conflict of her genuinely thinking she's sharing good news, and that totally knocking him off. And I remember the first time I saw this, I was like, is he gonna forget a line? Like, for me, oh my gosh, it's so hard for me to watch shows where someone is on stage and like the stakes are really high. I'm like, oh my God, please don't forget a line. Please don't mess up. Like, oh, for someone who went to theater school and is pursuing acting, that's like the biggest fear. I have like recurring nightmares about it. And so thank goodness that didn't happen, but it was a more internal thing where everyone was like, Adam, you're amazing. He's like, no, I wasn't. I sucked. And that's a really real thing for anybody who's an artist, where you create something and you're just like, I'm not that shit. Like, I'm not proud of that. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? But internally, you know that wasn't your best work, and that's okay. Another comment about this says, Hannah is the epitome of selfishness, but she does it in such an earnest way that I feel like it's more about her being messy than malicious. I do think that's the case here, where I think Jessa has that more malicious side. Obviously, we see her messiness. She struggles with drugs and alcohol, but ultimately, like, she does really manipulative things more than Hannah, in my opinion. So I think Hannah has this like clueless nature. I was just rewatching the first episode a few days ago where she's asking her parents for money, and she's like, all I'll need is $1,200 a month for the next 6 months. And they're like, are you kidding me? And she's like, I know, it's so little that I'm asking, and they're like, no more money. She's just a little clueless. I don't agree that she's a narcissist. I would just say she's a clueless 20-something-year-old, and she didn't have the best timing with this. Let's go on to fan theory number 2, which is about the finale. And it basically says it makes sense in your 30s. And the finale is a big hotspot for a lot of Girls fans. Some of them say this is exactly what was amazing about it. This was so refreshing, especially I've read other people talk about how in your 30s it makes sense. When they watched it in their 20s, it didn't. I remember reading something where Lena was like, I knew this is what I wanted the finale to be. I knew that I wanted Hannah, not necessarily the final episode. I think she was trying to figure out actually what the final episode would be, but the idea of Hannah getting pregnant and having a baby. So let's see what this says. And they actually said this. Yes, I hated it when I first watched it as a teenager. Now I'm rewatching it in my early 30s. And to me, the finale finally makes sense. You grow apart from the people you thought you never would. And sometimes you just do end up with a day one friend who you've had all along, which to me is a testament to Hannah and Marnie's friendship. And the biggest love story in Girls is honestly Hannah and Marnie. And it's not pretty. It's not like a perfect love story either. But as much as I would say I am a Hannah and Adam stan, I do think that like Hannah and Marnie are endgame ultimately, and they're both still messy. Like Hannah is not treating Marnie very well. She's being like very mean, and I can't understand what it's like to have a baby because I haven't. So I don't know like postpartum what she's going through, but she's like not being great to Marnie, and Marnie hasn't been great to her. Like we're all imperfect. That's the whole point of this. It continues by saying Hannah always thought she was the most interesting person in the room, only to end up as a small town mother who's struggling with motherhood. Something in season 1 she would have scoffed at. And yeah, it's crazy like how big of a difference this is from season 1. Like all of them came to New York. They wanted to make it. Like Jessa says that all the time. She's like, we all said that we would be in New York. And we like basically took this vow together that we're going to stay in the city. Continuing, that's life and the reality for a lot of 20-somethings who thought they'd have some big grand adventure of a life. I do relate with people when they say the penultimate episode is the final for them, but also glad she wrote a dose of reality for Hannah at the end. I think that's a really refreshing take, a dose of reality for Hannah. And I've been through that too. Like I lived in New York City and then I moved down to South Carolina. I tried to live in the city multiple times and I was just not happy. I just didn't like it. But I felt like because I am pursuing acting, like I am not a real actor if I don't live directly in the city. And I think a lot of folks who want to live in the city or are pursuing any dream, especially artistic in the city, feels this like we need to be so uncomfortable. We need to be so scrappy. We need to be starving. We need to be struggling because that means we're going to make it. There's a reality to that where we're like, yeah, okay, paying your dues. But I think there's another reality where like, you don't need to make life harder for yourself just for the sake of it being harder. Like if there are easier ways to do something, you can do that. Let's see what people have to say about this fan theory number 2. I first tried the show as a 19-year-old and I did not like it at all. Binged the whole thing in a matter of weeks at age 30. Love it. I don't think I could laugh at the ridiculousness that was so close to my actual life until I was grown past that phase. LOL. Yeah, I didn't watch this in my early 20s. I started this when I was 29. So I had a very different perspective on it, but I'm so curious if that would have been I'm sure. I mean, even rewatching New Girl, they were a lot older than me. Like they were in their late 20s, early 30s, and I was in my late teens, early 20s. So that was a little bit of an opposite, but I'm curious. I feel like I'd have that same reaction. Someone commented back to this and said, same, I hated watching it in my early 20s, but now I love the show and I totally get what was Lena's intentions with it. Also, the soundtrack is so nostalgic. Ugh, dude. Even though I only watched it a year ago, every time I turn on IT from Christine and the Queens, I'm like, ooh, like it's incredible. It's incredible. Oh my gosh. It's incredible how a show can be nostalgic even if you didn't watch it in your early 20s. I just think that's insane. Someone else says that Hannah never really struck them as someone who would be serious about having a baby with a practical stranger before being settled in life. I thought for sure she'd terminate that pregnancy. And I really like this conversation that came up because I think we all have assumptions about like what someone else would do. I remember when she went and found out she was pregnant by Joshua, and he was like, oh, I can help you take care of it. And she was like, what would make you think that I want to take care of it? And I guess on one hand, maybe she was justified for him automatically assuming that she wouldn't want to have a baby with a stranger. There's like a reality on the other hand that I think he wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong. I think he was just trying to be helpful, and I don't know, like there's not really a right or a wrong. He was assuming something and he was wrong, and maybe her reaction wasn't needed, but you know, like you're also got a lot of hormones going, and like maybe she was also battling with that idea. I don't know, like there was so much going on in her head that I'm sure it was really hard to even grapple with that idea. Someone else comments about the perfect ending of Hannah being pregnant and living in the suburbs, saying it's painfully real. After trying to separate herself from her mother the entire show, she ends up just like her. And there's so many harsh realities in this show where like people won't find out that there's cheating going on. Like I don't think Ray ever found out that Marnie was sleeping with Desi even though they got divorced. Like Shoshana hooking up with like the front desk employee guy, and she never told Ray, right? Like there's a lot of harsh realities in the show that they don't really bring them full circle, because I think Lena wants a really realistic point of view on it, and that's not always the clean, right thing. And I don't think there's a glorification of it in any way, because the show itself is very realistic. You know, the bathrooms look dirty. Even the coloring of the show is like very beige and like underexposed, and you don't see a lot of bright colors. Like it is a hyper realistic view of people who don't have a lot of money living in the city who want to be like Sex and the City characters, but they're not at all. Someone else also said, I watched this when I was 25. I was bummed and I felt like Hannah deserved a way different send-off, but now as a mom of 35, it strikes me as such an honest portrait of girlhood. Girlhood. Wow. Not even womanhood, girlhood. And I've been thinking about this too. Like, when do you turn into a woman? Like, I don't feel like I'm a woman. I just turned 30, but it's like, is when you're a mom? When you decide that you're a woman? Like, I don't know. Like, I love that they mentioned girlhood, even though Hannah's still a mom right now. Because I think that there's this like weird, uncomfortable pressure that like when you're a mom, you suddenly can't be fun anymore and you can't be a girly girl. And I love that. I think it makes sense to who Lena is, especially if she wanted this from the start. I think it plays along with the hyper-realistic version of girls. It was a shock to me, but I think it makes a lot of sense, and it puts us in a very uncomfortable position where like the girls are not where they started. We would be so satisfied if like everyone ends up where they started, like the last scene of New Girl where like everyone's together who you wanted to be together and they have kids and they're playing and stuff. Like we all want that, and this makes sense to the way that Lena sees the world and the way that she created the show, where no, it's not like that at all. Going on to fan theory number 3, one of the best one-liners is Rebecca, Hannah's cousin. And she says, I'm kind of on a schedule and I feel like maybe you're not. They continue on. Who's your favorite one episode or even one scene character you wish we could have seen more of? Rebecca, for me, always, they said. I literally never get tired of this episode. She maybe has like 7 minutes of screen time, but she feels like a completely realized character. The writing, the actor's bone dry delivery, and her dynamic with Hannah are so ridiculously specific and funny. And somehow the fact that they're cousins is instantly believable. They're really just two sides of the same lacking self-awareness coin. I think we've all met a Rebecca, insufferable, but I could have watched much more of her. Now, whenever people post fan theories on Reddit, we always just get a bunch of people who like add on their favorite lines. And so someone says, I just thought a bar was the right place to go with someone like you. Actually, to this point, someone says, OMG Rebecca, insisting Hannah comes out for a drink with her, then making her drink alone at the bar because she doesn't drink on weeknights, but it seems like a place she would hang out. Just insult after insult and shooting down every attempt Hannah makes at humor or connecting. So perfect. Dude, if I had a cousin that called our grandma Flo Job, like, oh, the old Flo Job, I would be like, cackling. I'd be like, I love you so much. She'd be my best friend. The face and gesture they make at each other while finalizing the plans before Hannah mouths, bitch. That was so funny. This is why I love the show so much, because it is so improv heavy. Like, was that written in the script? Was that a Judd Apatow, like, hey, throw in something really funny at the end? Was that just Lena being Lena? Either way, it was hilarious. And now I'm thinking I should watch Spanglish because apparently she's Bernice from Spanglish. Should I be watching it? Comment down below. Someone says the car accident they get into is so fucking funny. And then someone says, don't just text car crash. So someone else puts in one of their favorite lines, which isn't Rebecca, but when Amy Schumer is actually on the show and she's friends with Adam's girlfriend who he like ghosts her. So Amy Schumer's character looks at Hannah and she goes, did you leave in a rush? Someone else really liked Julia Garner's character as Charlie's roommate in one of the best episodes, obviously, Panic in Central Park. What a little treat. That was really fascinating, and I still don't really understand like what that was for, but I know it was needed, and so I just need to watch it a 10th time to see. Agreed, I think this was a hilarious part of the show. Fan theory number 4 is that Ray's character development was the best character development of the entire series. And they say, how much of you guys appreciated Ray's character development? So here's what some people have to say about that. He was awful at the start and became the only likable character. Others say, love Ray. I felt like he grew in the most realistic and positive way. He still feels like himself in the same character, but more mature, open-minded, kind. And we have Shosh to thank for that. And I love their friendship at the end. I just thought it was weird when him and Abigail started hitting it off and Shosh was like, she was almost like disgusted or offended. I thought it would have been so sweet for her to be like, oh, this is so cute, you know, unless she like still had a crush on Ray? I don't know. I was like, oh, why is she being so mean? Someone comments and says, I absolutely love Ray from start to finish. The episode where him and Abigail meet, yes, and go on their little city adventure and carry on Hermes' project is by far my favorite part in the entire series. That coupling seems so weird, but she brings out such a wonderful side of Ray. She's like a beam of light, and because he's like Oscar the Grouch, it works so well. And I don't know, maybe because Shoshana is like still finding herself, I think that Abigail sees through his grumpiness, and she just sees the good in people, whereas Shoshana like will get stuck in that. Like she's maybe too much of, I don't know if an empath or just too much of like a chameleon where if she's around people like that, maybe she knows she's going to be like that. At least that's what it would be like for me. Like if somebody was that down in the dumps all the time, I'm always like, dude, you're bringing me down. Like I can't be the only one lifting us up. Other folks say loved Ray even from the beginning as a crotchety old aimless loser. And I believe Judd was the one who told Lena to bring in a character like this to kind of level the playing field with these 4 ridiculous girls who were so selfish. They needed somebody who was able to be like, guys, are you kidding me? What are you doing? To almost speak as the audience members and being like, you guys are selfish. You guys are insane. What are you doing? Just bring us back to reality so not everyone on the show was like insanely out of touch. Someone goes, I love Ray. I am Ray. But I do think the very first episode, he's in a totally different character than we see throughout the rest of the show. I think this puts him off in a bad foot until I kept watching and realized how his actions in that episode were super out of character. Yeah, I mean, like I would imagine people are always trying to figure out like where things live in the pilot. Maybe they were like waiting for the pilot to get picked up, you know, like people will film pilots and then wait for them to be picked up by the network. I can't remember if this was the actual way this happened for girls, if they like automatically picked up a season or if they needed to do a pilot first. Him cooking the opium, I think in the original script, Adam was cooking the opium, I think. But maybe they wanted to keep him as sober, and maybe they decided that at the beginning that they didn't want him to do it. I don't know. That did seem a little out of character, but I'm gonna forgive it because we love Lena. Agreed. I love Ray's character development, and I love just at the end. I think there are a lot of moments with the characters where there isn't a lot of hope. Like, I would say Jessa and Adam, like, I don't, you know, they just feel like miserable together. But him with like Abigail and all of it, he just got a lot of assets from Hermie. Like, that seems really hopeful for me, and I love that. Now, fan theory number 5 is that Marnie is the best friend ever to Hannah, almost tying it back to our first one. And they say what you want about Marnie, but she was a good friend to Hannah. Here's what some people have to say about this. Someone goes, Marnie was imperfect, but she was a better friend than Hannah deserved. Hannah constantly let her down and leaned on her emotionally and financially. And I agree with that. And I remember the first season where she's just like, Hannah, you just got to ask your parents for a little bit more money. Like, I'm covering you right now. Just ask them for a few more months and like get a job. You know, she was really, really trying to help her. And Hannah was, I don't know, listening to Jessa where Jessa's like, wow, she seems like she's in a good place. And Marnie's like, are you high? What are you saying? Now, someone responds back to this and says, did she lean on her financially past season 1 when Marnie moved out? I don't remember her helping her past that. Marnie was definitely a good friend covering her share when she was suddenly cut off. But do we know if Marnie got any help from her family? I don't know. I think Marnie's responsible. That's the one thing. I think she's the most responsible of the friend group. I mean, she's the one who wants to organize all of the get-togethers and wants everybody to keep in touch, putting their wishes in a fire and watching it burn. And then, like, she has a schedule. It's very cute. She's terrible with men. We know that. She just has a horrible, horrible cycle that she needs deep-seated therapy for. But I think she is a good friend. Someone else says Marnie was also a self-righteous asshole and acted this way because she had a hero complex. Yeah. Like, yes, and that. Like, you could be a good friend, and it could be because you have a hero complex. Like, two things can be true at the same time. Like, I am a very intense person sometimes when it comes to, like, my passions and, like, pursuing my dreams. And I know that's because I have parents who just, they can't stop. Like, when I was younger, if I sat on the couch for more than 2 hours, they'd be like, get up, you're lazy, go and do this. And, like, do I need therapy for that? Yeah, because I can't sit still. On a Sunday, I'm just like, I need to do something. I need to be efficient. I can also use that as a superpower to help propel me to that next goal. And I could also say, your girl needs therapy for that because she can't sit still. She can't be comfy in her own skin. Someone else kind of seconds this and says, no, she wasn't. She cared about being perceived as the best friend Hannah could have, not so much about Hannah herself. And that's an interesting point because in that Southampton trip, she was like, hey, I was hoping that we would all just be able to hang out and, like, prove to everyone via Instagram that we get together as a group, you know? So I don't know if that was the primary reason. I do think there's a lot of that performative nature there, but ultimately I think it's both. I think she likes to show people that she's a good friend, and I think she, under the surface, like, she's not a good girlfriend. Horrible, horrible relationship partner, but she's a better friend, for sure. If I had to pick one of those friends, it would definitely be Marnie. Now, you might have remembered my mention of Sex and the City and how all the girls kind of want to be like that, but they're not. I have an entire breakdown all about how Hannah Horvath is Carrie Bradshaw, and I think the relation in here was that Marnie is Charlotte, which I feel like Shoshana is Charlotte, so I got a whole other breakdown right over there. If you enjoyed this, like this video, hit subscribe if you want more like this, and I will see you next time, friend. Bye.